Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Became a Fixer Before UA? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. His attention was drawn to it from the first time his mom gave him a few slips of paper to buy ice cream. He saw the way you could just exchange a few yen for something else. He knew you had to give money to the ice cream man to get a treat. But that's all it was at the time. As a little boy, all he cared about was the exchange of cash into new All Might merchandise. That's all money really meant to him. But things change. In his first year of middle school, he came home to see his mom in her bedroom crying over opened envelopes and creased papers. Later that night, he snuck into his mom's room while she was cooking dinner. He saw numbers, large numbers, lined up making totals and making larger numbers. Izuku wasn't dumb. He knew these numbers were expenses, housing, bills, and utilities, maybe other things as well. But that was the first time he actually understood the exchange of money for his entire livelihood. The world seemed to get bigger and his comprehension of certain realities hit him. Heroism seemed to fade into the back of his mind and his mother took a big step forward. He would work hard, all for the sake of their small family. All he knew was that he never wanted to see his mom cry over a single yen ever again. Oh, welcome home, Miss Toko. Izuku wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead. I'll be done in a little bit. I'll be quick, he smiled wide. He wore big yellow rubber gloves, a not-so-white-anymore t-shirt, along with rough stained jeans. At his hips sat a bulky belt which held cloths, small brushes, spray bottles, sponges, and other cleaning supplies. Miss Toko smiled at the hard-working boy. Thank you, Midoriya, but please take your time. I didn't mean to get home earlier than midnight. Ho ho ho, the woman looked around her home. You did a great job as usual. He swiped at his green hair, trying to look at least a little more presentable as the woman sat her purse on the couch. No, really, I am almost done now. He seemed to zoom around the kitchen, spraying and wiping the surfaces with an odd intensity and practiced speed. He finished with a perfect pose. The kitchen, as well as the rest of the house, sparkling upon completion. Perfect, Izuku whispered to himself coolly. Miss Toko clapped lightly at the performance. Ho ho. Wonderful, Midoriya. Always so spirited. She began to pull a wallet from her pocket. She didn't see the green-haired boy's eyes spark with life. Here you go, dear. The boy tried not to grab the cash too eagerly from her hands. He turned around for a brief moment as he counted the bills. He counted extra. He turned back around with a huge smile. Oh, I think you gave me too much. No, it's no mistake, just keep it, you're always so kind. The woman waved him off lightly. No, miss, you're too kind. Thank you so much. He quickly tucked the bills into his pocket. So, I'll be off now, have a great night. I'll be back same time next week. Izuku left the house quickly, checking the time while rushing home. Once he reached the door of his apartment, he held his breath. He quietly opened the door, entering the dark house with gentle steps. The lights suddenly turned on and the boy jumped out of his own skin. His head creaked to the side with a nervous smile, a looming figure glaring at him. She looked unimpressed. Her arms were crossed and she had a tick mark almost protruding from her forehead. Where have you been? Do you know what time it is? She looked at him and grimaced as she saw what he was wearing. Are you serious? Izuku, please, I told you I didn't want you doing this anymore. Mom, please. It's just a side job so I can pay for more hero merchandise. I don't want you cleaning houses until the sun goes down, just to pay for merchandise. And I know that's not true because, have you looked at your room? It's nearly empty these days. I keep them hidden. Stop lying, Izuku. The boy looked to the side ashamed. I'm sorry. I won't schedule anything this late again. I'm making some extra cash. His mom's eyes widened at a sudden realization. Are you the one who's been leaving extra cash in my wallet? Izuku. And no, I just He hesitated, trying to think of some quick lie. You can't, Izuku, you just can't keep. Please, just Mom. I just want to help you. I'm old enough. Just let me do this for us. No, No, Izuku, I don't want you working anymore. It's my responsibility to take care of us. I don't want you doing anything. You're still just my child. Please, Mom, I've been working and saving, and I can help. His mom gave an exhausted sigh and turned slightly. Let's go to bed now. It's late. If you're hungry, there's dinner in the fridge. She walked down the hall quietly. Tell your clients you're not going back. I don't know. Stop. When he got to his room, he held back tears. They weren't poor. Not rich either. But any burden he could relieve from his mother's shoulders was another step forward. He was frustrated at his mother's reluctance to let him help. The first time she discovered him working, it was harmless. He was dog-sitting and the dog bit him. When he got home, he couldn't hide the bite from his mother. Obviously, she freaked out. So with the cash he earned from the small job, he bought his mom a small present. Hoping she would forget about the incident, Izuku made sure to be extra cautious in hiding his jobs from then on out, using small excuses like hanging out with friends that didn't exist. But his mom didn't need to know that truth. The boy rushed to grab a box from under his bed. He sighed with relief when he saw it was still there. It was a black box, tough outer material and a lock on it. Izuku fumbled with the cash he got from cleaning and unlocked the box. Stacks of organized bills sat in the box. The boy mentally added how much he had stored up. It looked suspicious if you didn't know what kind of person Izuku was. It was far more than a standard child's savings. But Izuku felt he had more responsibility than the average child. He closed the box lightly and sank into himself. He hugged the box with a certain resignation. The cold pressed against his forehead and he sighed. He just wanted his mother to understand. Even with his mother reprimanding him and forbidding him from work, Izuku didn't plan to stop at all. There was just so much he had to do. The teacher spoke out loudly. I could pass out career aptitude tests, but why bother? I know you all want to be heroes anyway. He spoke with a flamboyant tone. All the students cheered in agreement. Hey, I know you have some great quirks but no powers in school. Get a hold of yourselves. He was stern and joking at the same time. Izuku tried to slink into his chair as Katsuki began to speak up, sitting lazily over his desk. Hey, don't lump me in with these losers. I've got what it takes to be one, but everyone else would be lucky to end up as a sidekick to some D-lister. The boy grinned. The class erupted in protest, the insult not taken lightly. The blonde boy only laughed in their faces. I've aced all the mock tests. I'm the only one at this school that could get into UA. And I will. The teacher only affirmed the boy's beliefs, nodding as he looked at Katsuki's good scores. The rest of the class only seemed to be in disbelief at the boy's confidence, cockiness, and ambition to really try for such a prestigious school. Unimpressed, the teacher stared at his clipboard. Oh yeah, Midoriya, don't you want to go to UA High as well? Katsuki's head snapped, his eyes locking with Izuku's. The smaller boy felt his heart jump into his throat. Be business. For business. The business course Kaken. He practically jumped out of his seat trying to clarify the situation. Are you trying to upstage me? Ha, Deku. His red eyes bored deep in Izuku. What would you want with a freaking maid like you? It came out last year that Midoriya had a cleaning service. They haven't let him live it down since. Mostly to make fun of him, of course. But the boy didn't really care. He took a certain pride in his jobs. Well, obviously he didn't like to be insulted, but he only felt embarrassed at the beginning. Not a maid. And I'm not really, doing anything. They have opportunities other schools don't. The freckled boy tried to defend himself. I don't even want to see you in those halls, but you'll probably get squashed during the test anyway. The boy scoffed and turned his attention away from Izuku. Pathetic wannabe. Jobs were getting tough to get to. His mom set a curfew for him and started watching him like a hawk. The only jobs he could get were right after school and maybe if he snuck out at night time. But who would want someone cleaning their house at midnight? His babysitting job would be safe. That family paid the most anyways, but all his other jobs stood almost no chance against the new rules. He started searching up how to make money as an underage teenager. Obviously babysitting and housekeeping assisting work was there. The rest were unrealistic things like winning the lottery or illegal betting. An underage teenager literally can't do either of those things. He sighed as nothing came to mind. He scrolled the internet longer, trying to avoid scams and fake websites. That's when he accidentally clicked on a forum. He meant to just click out, but the title was too attention-grabbing. Hiring, cleaners. Flexible schedule, NDA mandatory. It was sketchy. The entire website he was on was sketchy. It was disguised through a bunch of ads. Some flyers talk about soap discounts, others highlighting removal services with no other context, or candy sales, but there's a picture of leaves on the cover. He wanted to immediately leave the website, but he caught one last glimpse of the cleaning ad. His eyes almost flew out of his skull. The pay was great. In fact, Izuku thought he would even clean sheet for hours if that was the kind of pay he was getting. And then he became a little nauseous at the thought. The pay was seriously ridiculous. What kind of cleaning would he be doing to be paid that much? He felt he already knew, but there was some morbid curiosity he couldn't shake. He quickly shook his head and exited the site. He wasn't that desperate for money. He wasn't going to get into trouble over something suspicious like that. He was babysitting after school. Of course his mom thinks he's just hanging out with friends. It was beginning to get late and he had already put the children to sleep, 2 boys, 1 5 and the youngest just a few months old, and tidied up any messes. He checked the text messages the mother sent him. She said her husband would be home around 8, but she was gone for a work trip. Izuku was just waiting to be paid so that he could sprint home. The green-haired boy stood over the kitchen sink, wiping off some gross stickiness the kids had put on him. He loved the boys, really cute but mischievous kids. Izuku startled as the front door opened loudly. He looked to the side about to greet whoever entered, but oddly enough he heard miming. He froze as the sounds of kissing got closer to where he was, and a red heat flushed his face. He panicked. He probably shouldn't interrupt their moment. He frantically looked back and forth to see if there was somewhere he could hide for a moment. Suddenly the couple stumbled past the kitchen. Izuku was on fire. He scrambled with his words as he accidentally locked eyes with the father of the kids he was taking care of. The man's eyes widened as he immediately pushed his partner away, lipstick smudged across his face. They both stared in horrified silence. The younger boy looked around the room awkwardly and was waving his arms around as if trying to salvage the situation. But then he noticed the woman. Purple silky hair draping around her, eye-catching blue skin. This beautiful woman was not this man's wife. Izuku's blushing red face turned stark white at the realization. "Oh, Midoriya, I didn't realize you were still here. Why don't we have a chat?" His green hair lowered as he looked at the man apprehensively. He followed behind the man distantly, crossing his arms unsure of what to do or say. The man stepped toward the boy carefully. "Look, Midoriya, really this isn't what you think it is, it's complicated." The man adjusted his tie, keeping a controlled tone. "I'd appreciate it if you just kept this between us." Izuku was shaking, intensely nervous. His true feelings got lost in his throat. "I don't want to get involved. I won't say anything." His words were barely a squeak. "Yeah, you're a respectful kid, that's why we hired you, you know? We trust you." Izuku trembled, unable to meet the man's gaze. "I really won't say anything, I won't, I promise." The man didn't smile, but the tension in the air eased just slightly. "How's your mom these days?" His eyes darted up, meeting the man's eyes in shock. "My mom is, she's doing well. She's working a lot." "Yeah, I understand. You take after her hard-working nature. Most kids your age don't even bother working at all. It's great." "Yeah." The man pulled out his wallet. He pulled out bill after bill and waved the stack of yen in front of the babysitter's face. "Here. Since you've been so great to us. You know I basically see you as one of my own." There was a certain glint in the man's eye that made Izuku's gut churn. The man patted Izuku's shoulder and began to walk back to his mistress. "Why don't you go home for the night, Midoriya? We'll let you know when you can come by again to watch the boys." All the boy could do is leave, the stack of cash feeling like lead in his hands. He stood outside the house. He tucked the money tightly into his pants. He counted it all instinctively. There were 6 crisp 10,000 yen notes in his pocket. It felt like the edges were stabbing into his leg. His stomach churned uncomfortably. He remembered the children's smiling faces and he felt like he just destroyed it all. It went against his beliefs. To let this man get away. He thought he would never be the kind of person to take bribes. But here he was. A wad of cash in his pocket that felt so undeserved. He looked down at his worn red shoes. He wanted to believe that it was just money. Then he again pictured the wife, the confident and kind woman who would thank him for his work, who would compliment him and give him extra food. And his image of their perfect family shattered. When he got home he didn't eat dinner. He couldn't stomach it. He reluctantly opened his black box and slid the 6 bills where the rest of the 10,000 yen slips lay. He didn't bother calculating how much it added to his total. He wanted to pretend that money didn't exist. He scrolls his phone aimlessly at night, unable to sleep, feeling nauseous. He wanted to smack himself in the head. He fantasized a world where he was bolder and more confident. Maybe in that world he would have denied the money, told the wife, and had the husband condemned. Now, he could barely look at the wife's contact in his phone. He tried to think about something else, but the crisis in his mind raged on. Contemplating telling her despite the money in his pocket. He wrote up a few drafts in his notes, but he couldn't send them. One side of his mind imagined the justice it brought. The truth being revealed. The other side of his mind could only imagine a broken family. The father remained rich, getting married to his affair partner instead. The wife has to raise 2 children by herself. The image of his own mother overlapped with his vision. He wanted to cry. He wishes he never found out this secret. He scrolled and scrolled the internet, YouTube videos and meaningless articles. He sees titles, Newest Hero Debut. Will they make it big? Beautiful big world climate predictions, pro hero, busts crime ring, find out how. He scrolled and scrolled some more. Top 60 hero arrested for tax evasion and corruption. His heart cringed. Even heroes in the top 100 accepted bribes and didn't follow the rules. And they were rich. His eyes were glued to his screen. Illuminated only by his phone in his dark empty room. Maybe it was because they didn't follow the rules, they became rich. Izuku's skin crawled. It's exactly like what he did. Izuku listened to money. Everyone did. Hero or not. Money moved people. The next day, determined, he wakes up extra early and heads to the mall. He makes sure to text his mom that he's shopping. He would like to be honest at least a little bit. Plus it wasn't so strange to find him there. He liked to gawk at hero figurines and posters, basically drooling over them, but he never bought any. Just because he was saving up didn't mean he couldn't appreciate the new limited edition All Might Red Fury throwback figurine with 20% more muscle and high-quality paint. His heart tightened as he ripped himself away from the display case. Sparkling tears went unshed for the beauty of the piece. But he steeled himself quickly, focusing on the main mission he was there for. Buying Mama presents. If Izuku couldn't bear to have the bribe money from the night before, then he would just have to get rid of it. With purpose. Izuku robotically stood in front of a perfume and makeup store. His nose flared as he took his first steps forward, almost feeling like the first man on the moon. There was a twinge of pink dusting his cheeks. He's never been inside this store alone before. He was usually with his mom, on his phone, not paying attention. Now that he was paying attention, he was overwhelmed. One of the store helpers came up to him. "Hello, sir, how can we help you today?" She was polite, but Izuku could tell she was amused by this teenage boy who clearly didn't know what he was doing. Hello. He felt like he said that way too loudly. "I'm here to buy my mom, perfume." The lady smiled. "Here, I can help you make a selection." They walked together to the correct aisle. "Do you have anything in mind? Or any idea of what scents she may be looking for?" The boy seemed to have steam coming from his head. Well, I know she likes floralish scents. Thought woody, or, musky? I don't know, I'm trying to remember. Well, here, the lady presented him a pinkish bottle. "This is a very popular scent, sweet rose, here, would you like to test it?" "Why yes." Izuku hesitantly grabbed the bottle. He fumbled lightly and went to spray it up in the air. His head whipped back as his eyes burned. Oh my God, what happened? The lady panicked momentarily, taking the bottle from his hands. I sprayed my eyes. Izuku cupped his burning eyes in his hands, crouching over and crying involuntarily. He looked up to where he thought the woman was, squinting tightly, tears pouring down his cheeks. I'm so sorry. No dash. It's not your fault. She tried to calm him down and bring him to a place he could wash his eyes out. Izuku walked out of the store embarrassed, and with a small bag and with red puffy eyes. He continued on with his mission. He still had a lot more money to spend. He walked into a skincare store quietly. He looked around at the blindingly white lights and floors and walls and products, and he felt like he was a sore thumb with his red hoodie on and green hair. He tried not to feel so out of place. He walked around the aisles. That much dash? For eye cream? Hope Mom doesn't do research on the brands I'm getting her. He mumbled lightly. He put it down and tried to move on, but it was too late. A man with a white turtle neck, blonde hair, and a blindingly white smile called out to him. Excuse me, but your skin has so much potential. The man smiled even brighter. I'm Derek and I'm here for tea. Don't be shy, huh? Come here. This was one of Izuku's nightmares. He couldn't say no. What if the man actually got Izuku a good deal? But this confident blinding man made him shriek internally. Okay. Izuku wanted to smack himself. The words came out before he could even actually think about what to say. Darn it. So what's your name, King? Derek sent shivers down Izuku's spine. Midoriya, he squeaked. Great name. Matches you, Midori Midoriya. Green hair, perfect for you. He waves his hands as if gathering chakra in the universe to formulate a thought. I don't know, maybe has a bit of a heroic feel to it too. I love your freckles by the way, so unique, makes you pop. So, Midoriya. Do you moisturize? Soap. Oh, no. Listen, you may feel young, but you start aging the second you're born. I will change your life, come with me. The intensity of his eyes makes the boy follow out of fear. You have to think, Midoriya, do you want to look 20 at 40 or 40 at 20? Skin is a long-term investment. The man started smearing Izuku's cheeks with some cream. This is our Italian honey milk hydrating strengthening serum, all ethically made and imported, made from real Italian cow's milk. Izuku is melting again. Actually I just wanted to get a gift for my mom, like a lip balm or something. He trailed off awkwardly. No, your mom doesn't want some cheap lip balm. She wants luxury. And I just know she would want you to glow. And you love her, right? WLYS, yeah but? Let's see you glow, Midoriya. Izuku sat in a food court chair with a beyond exhausted expression, his soul looking like it was trying to escape his body. He also carried another bag with 4 overly priced skincare products that he got roped into buying in a bundle deal. Derek will haunt Izuku's dreams. While lunch was cooking on the stove, Inko Midoriya was sorting out bills on the dining table. Izuku tried to sneak past his mom who didn't move a muscle since he entered the house, holding the presents in his hands. His mom doesn't even look up. What did you buy, honey? Izuku freezes for a moment. Nothing. Shirts. Hero merch. He spoke a little too quickly. His mom looks at him strangely. Usually that store doesn't use such high-quality bags with gold rope as handles. He sighs and slowly places the fancy bags on the table like he's surrendering contraband. She evaluates the items on the table. Italian honey milk eye cream, Italian queen bee glow serum. She picked up the other 2 skincare products with a raised brow. They moisturize and make you glow. Izuku spoke quietly. Do you have a crush on a girl, Izuku? His mom spoke dryly. What? I was a sales guy. He was very intense. He cornered me. She picked up the receipt. Her eyebrows shot up. Izuku. What? This is way too expensive. I panicked. He said I had nice freckles and high skin potential. She stared at him unbelievingly. She opened the other bag and pulled out the perfume. Izuku snagged the receipt before she could look at it. This brand is expensive, Izuku. How did you dash? She sighed even deeper. He wilted. I wanted to get you something. Fancy. But I didn't know what. And then he started smearing stuff on my face and I blacked out a little. She shook her head, stifling a laugh. Next time you want to show me love, how about washing the dishes without me asking? Or not shoving all your mess in your closet? Izuku blushed once again, sending his mom a gentle and embarrassed look. She beckoned him over and pressed him into a hug. Thank you, dear. Before he knew it, school was over and summer was there. Izuku had way more time for jobs now, and his mom would never know, being too busy at work after all. He was relieved he didn't have to spend any more time with his classmates. And if he studied well that summer, he would most likely never have to see any of them again, if he went to UA. As he left his middle school for the last time, no one says goodbye to him, no one says they'll miss him or that they'll stay in contact. He expected it, but he still felt a little lonely. He decides to take the long way home. The way he went to avoid people he didn't want to see. Maybe for nostalgia or just to be alone, Izuku didn't really understand why he went that way either. He holds a notebook in the air, looking dumbly at the scribbles. Summer job ideas. Underneath were dumb concepts that were born of boredom in his science class. He only has 5 dumb ideas down and that's about it. He sighed as he lowered the notebook. He walked down an alley uncaringly, having taken this route a million times before. But this time was different. As he walked he heard voices, a man. Instead of turning around and finding a new way home, Izuku stalked forward, curiosity taking him. Ahead of him was an open door, leading to the inside of one of the buildings. The man was whispering loudly, but still whispering. He sounded agitated. No, he doesn't need to know what's in it. He's just a drop point. We pay him, he keeps his mouth shut. Izuku could almost hear the person on the other line. He quietly moved closer to the open door. He could see a gray cloud rising from behind it. Must be the man smoking. You sure he's not a Fed? We've had 2 busts this week. Izuku stepped forward and a loud screech filled the alley. The boy looked down, the tail of a cat underneath his foot. Izuku quickly jumped back. The angry cat flared and bolted away. His heart only calmed for a moment before a dreadful silence filled the area. Soon the boy could hear the heavy footsteps coming his way, a man revealing himself from behind the door. The suspicious man walked up to Izuku, who was frozen stiff. In his hands was a generic brown box. He had a generic DLVY vest, generic face even. And that was Izuku speaking. You lost, kid? His voice made Izuku's heart drop. And no, I go down this alley a lot, from school, just, heading home. His voice trembled. Right. The man eyed him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a 2,000 yen banknote. Do me a favor. You didn't see this door open. You didn't hear anything. Izuku stared at the money and swallowed. I wasn't. I'm not even here, really? The man shoves the 2,000 yen into his hand. Now you definitely weren't. He turned and disappeared back into the door. It shut with a heavy click. Izuku stood there alone. His hands clammy and squeezing the bill tightly. His stomach did flips and guilt racked through him. He finally made his way out of the alleyway. He wanted to collapse in on himself. Was that illegal? Was that a crime? He thought to himself. He looked at his shaking hands for a moment, and then looked back up at the clear sky. The sky that heroes fly through every day. The sky that holds planes that take people far away. The sky that is filled with the sun's warmth. His hands were now balled up into tight fists. He keeps walking. The weeks go by and Izuku continues with his odd jobs. Cleaning services, babysitting, house-sitting if he's lucky, garage cleaning, a lot of cleaning, and the occasional helping out local street vendors. Izuku even felt bold enough to start putting up flyers. Handmade silly flyers with his phone number on it and the basics of being able to help out with anything. The sweet old street vendors let him put them up around their stalls. Eventually the texts and calls started flowing and the green-haired boy was glowing. Izuku had to learn a lot of things on the fly, like climbing trees in order to install a bird feeder, or washing cars enough to make them sparkle without any light. One time someone made him get rid of a hornet's nest. That was pretty evil, but he did it anyway and got paid a lot. Another time someone paid him just to hang out with them. Izuku did his best to make it the most fun day ever. Izuku, why do you smell like fish? Dash. Okay. All you have to do is put on this costume. Izuku stared at the thick, fluffy, and diabolical mascot costume. He was already dying in the summer heat. He stared at the woman trying to see if it was some joke. It was not. Even though it was fun at best and painful at worst, it was honest work. He was usually tired, sweaty, but proud. He even cleaned his own apartment one day. His mom was ecstatic when she got home. The very next day, he bought her that kind of pricey tea that she really liked. She gave Izuku a kiss on the forehead and immediately started brewing a pot of it. It felt really good. You're the boy who does errands, right? Izuku nodded, trying to seem professional yet nice. She smiled at him. Not nice, but professional. That's when she handed him the box. I've got a lot of things to do today, so could you handle this for me? Well, duh, it was just a box after all. She spoke up again. You have the face of someone trustworthy. That's rare these days. One day, a well-dressed young woman hired him to deliver a gift box to her brother across town. Said she liked his flyer, that she was just too busy to do it herself. Paid cash up front. Izuku saw no reason not to do it. On the way there he was even able to squeeze in some other jobs. When he delivered the package, the brother was relatively normal. Just a guy. This is the package from her? The freckled boy smiled lightly. Yeah, think so. Your sister? The man just crinkled his eyes at him. Thanks. I'll let her know it's been received. Izuku had no alarm bells go off. It was just a strange guy, wasn't that weird? He's dealt with weirder people. Then Izuku just moved on. Forgot about the whole interaction entirely and moved on to taking other jobs around the city, sneaking around his mom and trying to not let her know that he knows half the old ladies in Mustafu. A few days passed and news breaks out that a police unit stormed a game store. Someone Izuku recognized as a local florist gossiped with a friend. Did you hear? That place got raided. Whispers of illegal tech, enhancement drags, or contraband run through the streets of Mustafu. Izuku doesn't think it has anything to do with him. That afternoon, a tired-looking guy in street clothes approached Izuku in the mall. The man doesn't seem aggressive. Just watchful. You did a job for Aiko, right? Delivered a box. Izuku stiffened. His mouth goes dry as he tries to remember the event. He doesn't answer the man. The man held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. Relax. I'm not with the cops. Just trying to keep my friends out of trouble. What was in the box? Izuku freezes again. I don't know, it was just a gift. That's what she said anyways. The boy's heart began to burn from how fast it was beating. The man nodded. That's good. You shouldn't know. But listen, if someone asks you to deliver anything else for her, don't. People are watching. You don't want to be the fall guy when things go sideways. He walks off. Izuku is left sweating, mind spinning. He throws up. He got home and immediately started spiraling. Tell his mom? She'd kill him. Not literally, but close enough. Go to the police? Right. Like they'd believe some quirkless first year with a part-time gig. More likely, they'd think it was a prank, or worse, pin it on him. Pretend nothing happened? The easiest option. And the one he chose. For the next 2 weeks, he shut everything down. No jobs. No calls. Just him, holed up in his room, scared, paranoid, and disgusted with himself. It was a crisis completely out of his control. His stupid, awful luck was wrecking everything. How did this even happen? How did something that shady manage to creep into his tiny side hustle, a service for helping people with groceries and housework? Now he was terrified. Terrified the police would knock on his door, connect the dots, and blow up his life. One bad DLVY, and suddenly he's branded a contraband courier. Goodbye UA, goodbye future. And what if someone actually got hurt because of what he delivered? What if they had his name? His number? His address? What if he just put his mom in danger? Izuku couldn't stop shaking every time his thoughts went there. So he stayed home. He buried himself in UA exam prep. Scrolled endlessly on his phone. Left all messages on read from people trying to book his service. Because what if it happened again? What if he accidentally helped a villain load groceries into their car? Or unknowingly cleaned up a crime scene because someone asked him to take out some junk? He'd done it once without realizing. What was stopping it from happening again? And this wasn't small. This was already really bad. He wanted to punch himself for being so naive. He thought just because he worked hard and helped people, he'd be safe. That doing jobs outside of school meant dealing with nice old ladies and overworked parents. But outside his little bubble, the world didn't care that he was a kid, that he was trying. Adults didn't all play fair. Some smiled at him like he was just a helpful teen, others looked at him like a tool. Someone to get a job done. No questions asked. He needed to understand that. So, in a very mature and responsible way, Izuku opened his laptop and did what any self-educating future billionaire would do. He typed into a forum search bar. Crazy things you didn't know were normal until you became an adult. That should do it. He was still scared. Scared of being taken advantage of again. But he knew he had to start working again. There was no other option. He overheard his mother again, mumbling things about budgeting, trying to think of where to best allocate her earnings. Izuku's heart strained hearing her concerns again. He snuck into her room and stocked her up with as much cash as he could before it would be noticeable. Guilt racked him. Sure, he had an incredible amount of savings for his age. Enough to help his mother for a little bit. But his money did nothing. His mother didn't want his help, didn't want any of the money he had, and would be devastated if she found out he was working as hard as he was. She would never believe him saying he was saving for himself. So at the end of the day, he could only give his mother a few extra banknotes. The rest of it sat pretty in his black box under his bed. Izuku watched as his mom opened the envelope with the expenses. Her eyebrows furrowed and small unnoticeable sighs. But of course her son noticed. He always would. So Izuku decided to start working again. Even if his mother refused his money, maybe one day he would be able to show her and change their lives at the same time. Izuku would work towards that day. He didn't plan to open the door. Not anymore. Not after everything. But the knock wasn't from a stranger. 3 soft taps. Not rushed. Familiar. Izuku stayed frozen in place, halfway between the hallway and his room. For a moment he thought about ignoring it, letting whoever it was just go away. He didn't owe anyone anything. Not after what happened. But curiosity pushed at his ribs. He padded toward the door and peeked through the small peephole. It was Mrs. Hoshino. 2 floors down. Grocery bag in one hand. Her usual quiet smile. His chest eased. He opened the door without a word. "I'm so sorry to bother you," she said. "But my sink's leaking again. It's worse this time. I tried calling my usual guy, but no one picked up." Her eyes were soft. Not suspicious. Not hiding anything. Just a neighbor. Asking for help. Izuku nodded before he could talk himself out of it. Her place was warm. Too warm. She always kept it like that. The kitchen hadn't changed. It still smelled like ginger tea and cleaning spray. He crouched under the sink, listened to her shuffle around in the background, humming faintly. Just like she used to. It was safe. Quiet. Predictable. His fingers worked without thinking. He tightened the joint. Replaced the washer. Checked twice. Then again. He didn't want to miss anything. When he stood up, she was already holding a bill in her hand. "Thank you, dear. You're always so helpful." Izuku stared at it. He didn't want to take it. Not really. But he didn't want to refuse her either. So he accepted it. Folded it once. Slipped it into his pocket. Back home, he sat on his bed and stared at the envelope of money hidden beneath the floorboard. Then at the message notifications sitting unanswered on his phone screen. This job was safe. It didn't feel dangerous. It didn't feel wrong. It just felt normal. He missed that. Maybe he'd try again. Carefully. Just the easy ones. Only the ones that felt like this. He checked the message again. Just a few lines. Help someone move a few boxes. Cash pay. Address attached. Short, clean, nothing unusual. He read it 3 times before replying. Still felt uneasy. The walk there was quiet, but his eyes didn't stop moving. Step 1. Avoid suspicious adults. Step 2. Try not to look like someone avoiding suspicious adults, he thought to himself. He kept checking corners. Watched the reflections in glass windows. Looked for patterns. Anything that might suggest he was being followed. Nothing ever happened. That didn't make it better. The quiet made it worse. No one told you when something illegal was happening. It just happened around you. Before you noticed. Before you had time to ask questions. He learned that the hard way. The job site was clean. A storage unit open to the street. The guy waiting there was middle-aged, kind-looking, already sweating through his shirt. "Thanks for coming," he said, smiling. "Boxes in the back. Just gotta get them into the van." That was it. No shady looks. No weird pauses. Just a guy and his boxes. Izuku still paused. Took a second to scan the area. Counted the exits. Watched the man's hands. Then he nodded and followed him. The boxes were light. Labeled. Mostly books and kitchen stuff. A few sealed ones, but nothing heavy or loud or strange. He resisted the urge to open them all. He didn't want to find something. He didn't want to have to walk away. Not again. So he carried them. Box by box. Quietly. The man talked to fill the silence, about his new apartment, about the heat, about how grateful he was to have help. Izuku nodded when he had to. He kept his phone in his pocket, recording the whole thing. He'd delete it later. Maybe. When they were done, the man handed him a roll of bills. "Appreciate it," he said. "Take care." Izuku nodded again. Tighter this time. He didn't look at the money until he got home. Didn't spend it. Didn't touch it. He washed his hands first. Then checked the bills one by one. Nothing marked. Nothing weird. Still, he felt wired. Like something might happen hours later and he'd trace it all back to this. It was a normal job. He kept telling himself that. He didn't expect the woman to be so nice. Middle-aged. Tired but polite. She smiled when she opened the door. "You're right on time," she said. "Wow, you look younger than I thought." He ducked his head, a little embarrassed. "Sorry." No. It's sweet." She stepped aside to let him in. "You're helping me more than you know." She had an apartment on the 5th floor. No elevator. She needed someone to carry a few broken appliances down to the curb. Easy stuff. Nothing sketchy. Still, he was nervous. He kept glancing over his shoulder while working. Watched for neighbors. For cops. For anything out of place. But there was nothing. Just an old microwave. A rusted fan. Space heater, she said, had started sparking. He didn't talk much. Focused on the weight in his arms. Focused on not slipping on the stairs. She tried to pay him halfway through. He didn't take it. Not yet. "I'll finish first," he said, quiet but firm. She looked surprised. Then smiled again. "You're a good kid." That stuck with him. It echoed in his chest the entire way back up the stairs. He didn't hear that kind of thing often. Not at school. Not from classmates. He was invisible there. But out here, working out here, he was useful. Needed. He was the one getting it done. Quietly, efficiently, with no complaint. The kind of help people actually remembered. He liked that. He really liked that. When he finished, she handed him the cash and a cold can of coffee. "You're seriously a lifesaver. I didn't know what I was gonna do if no one showed up." Izuku took the drink. Mumbled a thank you. His hands were sore. His legs ached a little. But his chest felt light. On the way home, he didn't take the long way for once. He walked in the sun. Not cautiously. Not paranoid. Not entirely relaxed either, but better. The coins in his pocket clinked softly with each step. And for the first time in a while, he felt like someone. Not a student. Not a mistake. Just someone who helped. And that was enough. He shouldn't have cared. It was just a short grocery run his mom sent him on. He spotted a limping man overloaded with bags. Something sparked in Izuku's chest. He tried to shake it off, turning his head towards the way home. It wasn't his job. Not this time. But the man was clearly struggling, and no one was going to help. So instinct kicked in. Like it always did. He jogged over to a rough-looking man. He sputtered something about helping with the load, and took a few bags before the man could argue. "Thanks, kid," the man said gruffly, voice rough from age or cigarettes. Arms shot, legs worse. The man looked familiar. like someone he'd seen in old news articles or commercials. That faded utility belt. The cracked visor sticking out of the bag. No way. Weren't you a hero? He spoke with hint of excitement, barely concealed. The man sighed. Was. Keyword. He smirked bitterly, didn't make it past C rank. Injured, dropped by my agency, too slow to go solo. Didn't pay enough to stick around. They walked in silence for a few seconds. I used to want to be a hero, the boy said softly. The man snorted. Yeah. Lots of kids say that. Until they find out what it actually takes. What do you mean? The man stopped walking and shifted his weight. Something about the way he looked at the boy, tired, but not cruel, made the next words land heavy. It's not about saving people. Not really. It's PR, popularity, sponsorship deals. You want to save people for real. He jabbed a thumb toward the city skyline. Become a lawyer. Or a landlord. The boy didn't respond. Let me guess. No quirk. Yeah. The man didn't flinch. Then you're better off already. No one will expect you to play hero. You play smart. Izuku grimaced slightly. He pulled out a wrinkled business card. Blank, except for a contact number. You work hard. You helped me without asking. People like that? They're useful. The boy stared at the card, heart pounding. The man added, don't worry. It's not illegal. Just off the books. You want to make real money? Learn how the world actually works. The hall smelled faintly like bleach and birthday cake. Izuku had already helped move 2 folding tables and was halfway through untangling a cluster of paper streamers when the front door squeaked open. Another boy stepped in. Taller than him, with long, tall purple hair and tired-looking eyes. Hoodie sleeves pushed up, hands in his pockets, like he was still deciding whether to stay. The woman with the clipboard spotted him and pointed. Good, you're the other one. Go help green hair over there. Izuku glanced up at his hair. He hadn't realized it stood out. The boy made his way over without a word. His expression didn't change, not rude, just unreadable. Izuku gave a quick, polite bow. But I guess you're helping too. The boy blinked at him, then gave a short nod. Looks like it. He stepped around to the other side of the table Izuku was working on. They both lifted it into place. For a while, they worked quietly. The party was for someone named Yukiko. There were a lot of pink decorations and an uncomfortable number of instructions being shouted from across the room. Izuku kept his head down. He knew how to stay useful without being noticed. After the 5th chair stack, the other boy spoke. You do this a lot? Izuku looked up, surprised, then quickly looked away again. Oh, not like this exactly. Just things like it? Random jobs. Yeah. The other boy nodded. He didn't look judgmental, just curious. Or bored. Maybe both. How'd you get pulled into this one? Izuku scratched the back of his neck. Neighbor. Said they needed extra hands. I guess I've helped with enough stuff that people just ask me. Cool. They moved another table. Izuku managed not to trip over the uneven floor mat. You're pretty fast at this, the boy said, not quite a compliment. Izuku gave a small, sheepish smile. I've gotten used to being told to hurry up. So you're the reliable type? I try to be. Later, they both stood by the wall, waiting to see if more instructions were coming. Someone was arguing about balloons. The other boy crossed his arms. I'm guessing you're not here for the free cake. Izuku shook his head quickly. No, I'm just trying to save. For my mom. It's not, like, an emergency or anything, I just want her to, I don't know. Breathe easier later. He bit the inside of his cheek after saying that. He didn't usually talk about it. But the boy just nodded, not reacting much. That's decent of you. Izuku blinked. Oh, thanks. The pause. The other boy looked at him again, thoughtful. You always say yes to jobs like this? Izuku hesitated, then nodded. If I have time. And if it's not sketchy. This barely made the cut, huh? Izuku laughed under his breath. Yeah. I almost left when I saw the mop bucket still out. As they were finishing the last of the setup, the clipboard lady walked by and gave them a distracted thumbs up. She didn't even look at their faces. The other boy tilted his head toward the door. "We done?" "I think so," Izuku said. "Unless they want us to sing too." "I don't do that." Izuku smiled a little more freely this time. "Me neither." They didn't exchange names. Just a nod. At the door, like maybe they'd see each other again. Maybe. The air inside the break room was thick and still, barely cooled by the old ceiling fan spinning lazily overhead. Shinso leaned back against the cracked wall, rubbing the back of his neck. His shift had been dragging all day, and the dull buzz of fluorescent lights made it harder to stay awake. From the main area, two clerks were talking. Shinso's ears caught the low hum of their voices. "Hey, did you hear about that kid who's been helping out at all those places around the neighborhood?" the younger clerk said, sounding a bit annoyed. "Which one?" "There's a few who do odd jobs this time of year," the older clerk replied. "The one who fixed the leaking faucet at Mrs. Tanaka's house last week. Took him no time at all to. Not like those lazy plumbers who take days just to show up." "Yeah, I think I saw him once. Quiet kid. Doesn't say much, but gets things done. Never asks for work, people just come to him." Shinsu's heart skipped. The description reminded him of the kid he'd worked with a few days ago. The boy who was polite, a little awkward, but somehow steady. The younger clerk kept going, "Wish I could find someone like that. My place has a busted window that's been open to the bugs all summer." "Maybe ask around," the older clerk shrugged. "I've heard people call him Midoriya. No idea if that's his real name, might have remembered it wrong, but I think that's it." Shinso leaned forward slightly, his mind racing. Midoriya. That name hit him like a punch. The same name he'd seen on the few scraps of paper they'd exchanged during their side hustle. He remembered the kid's shy but steady presence, the way he'd fidget with his sleeves when nervous but still met his eyes when asked a question. Shinsu's thoughts tangled. He never said much about himself. Didn't even push to keep the jobs. Did what was needed and disappeared. But people know him enough to ask for him. For some reason, that made Shinso feel a little off balance. Like there was more to the kid than just the quiet, awkward guy he'd shared a few hours of work with. He wondered if Midoriya realized how much he'd already left a mark on this small corner of the world. And whether he wanted to be noticed at all. Shinso rubbed his temple and looked away, the hum of the store suddenly feeling heavier. Near the counter, two locals were chatting while the old store owner, Furuya, totaled up their purchases. "You should have seen the wheel on my cart," one woman complained. "Completely split. Had to drag it half a block." Furuya grunted. "Should have called that Midoriya kid again. Fixed mine in 10 minutes. Midoriya, that the quiet one? Green hair? Yeah. Polite. Shows up all over the neighborhood. I don't even know who sends him, he just appears." The woman raised a brow. "Kinda odd, isn't it? A kid doing all that work on his own? People are saying he's not even supposed to be doing that stuff. Like, under the table or whatever." Furuya shrugged. "Maybe. But he's never caused trouble. People like him." Shinso leaned against the shelf, watching a fly circle the light fixture above. He wasn't eavesdropping, exactly. But the name, Midoriya, was too familiar to ignore. So that really was his name. He'd only seen it scribbled on a label once and hadn't asked. Just remembered the face, the sleeves tugged over his hands, the too polite tone. The woman grabbed her things and left, still muttering something about how kids these days don't do anything by the book. Shinso sipped the coffee, still listening, though the conversation had ended. He'd only worked alongside the kid once, but apparently that was enough to hear his name echo around the block afterward. Not loud praise. Just passing mentions. Rumors. Some called him helpful. Others called him strange. To Shinso, he was just another teen trying to stay busy. Odd maybe, but not sketchy. Still, he wasn't surprised people were starting to talk. When someone keeps showing up where they're needed, just having a job to do, it puts ideas in people's heads. Shinso didn't care one way or another, but he made a mental note of it. Not concern, not judgment, just curiosity. Midoriya was on people's radars. And the other boy didn't even seem to notice. The houses here didn't look like they needed help. Two-story homes with glossy paint and hedges cut to exact shapes lined the sidewalk. The pavement didn't have weeds growing out of it. No dogs barked from behind half-finished fences. Even the mailboxes matched. Midoriya adjusted his backpack, clutching a rolled-up flyer someone had handed him from the community center. It had volunteer hours and a list of people always looking for assistance, but most of the names were crossed out. He wasn't there to ask for anything. He didn't even want to be seen, really. He just figured maybe there was something. Someone carrying groceries. A box too heavy. A light bulb out of reach. A woman in sunglasses exited a car a few feet ahead. Midoriya gave a small bow, just in case she glanced at him. She didn't. He kept walking. At the end of the block, he noticed a man pulling garbage bags out of a side gate. Midoriya hesitated, then stepped a bit closer, raising a hand. "Excuse me, do you need a hand with that?" The man turned, startled. Not angry, just caught off guard. He looked Midoriya up and down quick, but assessing. "No," he said flatly. "I'm fine." "Oh, okay." Midoriya gave a quick nod, already taking a step back. "Sorry." "No, it's fine," the man repeated, with a polite enough shrug. But it was clear the conversation was over. Midoriya kept walking. The air felt warmer here. Still quiet. No kids shouting on bikes. No radios playing through open windows. Every sound felt like it might get reported. He reached the corner and leaned against the shaded side of a pole, checking his phone not for anything in particular. Just to look busy. His reflection in the screen was washed out in the sunlight. Hair too messy. Bag worn at the corners. He didn't feel like he belonged here. Not in a dramatic, alienated way, just in a quiet, sinking sense. The same kind of feeling you get when you walk into the wrong waiting room or sit in someone else's seat. It wasn't like the neighborhoods he usually drifted through. There, people noticed him because they needed things. Here, people noticed him because he didn't quite fit. Midoriya turned back toward the busier part of town. He wasn't upset. Not really. Just reminded. Some places don't want help unless they ask first. And even then, they might ask someone else. It was humid. The kind of summer heat that settled between your shoulders and made even clean shirts feel damp. Izuku crouched behind the bookstore's side entrance, adjusting the hinge of an old, creaking gate. The owner, Mr. Makino, had asked if he could take a quick look at it after Midoriya had stopped by earlier to return a cart he'd borrowed for a Delvoy 2 days ago. It was never just a look. But Midoriya hadn't minded. Mr. Makino was a kind man. He ran the store mostly on his own, and he always let Midoriya browse the clearance manga in the back room. And this kind of job, patchwork fixes, things no one else wanted to do, was what Midoriya was known for. The bottom hinge was rusted through. He rummaged through his pack and pulled out a small wrench, already smeared with dried paint from a job last week. He had to brace the gate with his shoulder to keep it from sliding down as he unscrewed the bolt. He worked for nearly an hour. Not because it was difficult, but because Midoriya was careful. He rewired the latch so it wouldn't slam, oiled the joints, cleaned up the scattered screws into a neat pile even though he knew Mr. Makino wouldn't notice. By the time he stepped back and gave the gate a final push, it swung open smoothly with a soft click. A small, satisfied breath left his chest. Inside the shop, the bell above the door jingled as Midoriya stepped in. "Ah, done already?" Mr. Makino glanced up from the register. A polite smile. "You're a miracle, kid." "Not really," Midoriya said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Just tighten some things. You shouldn't have any more trouble." Makino stepped around the counter, poked his head outside, and gave the gate a test swing. "Huh, that's way better than before." Midoriya waited quietly. There was a pause, not uncomfortable, but long enough to feel the weight of expectation settle in the air. Mr. Makino reached into his shirt pocket, pulled out a small 500 yen coin, and pressed it into Midoriya's hand. "For your trouble." Midoriya stared at it for a half-second too long. "Thank you," he said quickly, pocketing it before the moment could stretch. It wasn't about the money. Not entirely. But 500 yen wouldn't buy a train ticket across town. And he knew if someone else, a contractor, or even a college student had come to fix the gate, they'd have been paid 5 times that, minimum. But Midoriya smiled anyway. He gave a small bow. If you ever need help again, just let me know. Will do, Makino said, already turning back toward the counter. You're a good kid. Outside, the sun had dipped behind the clouds. Midoriya sat for a moment on the store's curb, his water bottle resting on his knee. The coin felt heavier in his pocket than it should. He took a long sip. Swallowed. He wasn't angry. That would be childish. Mr. Makino was busy and kind, and not rich. And the job was simple. Midoriya's shoulders relaxed slightly, but something in his chest stayed tight. He'd worked hard. Harder than that coin implied. Maybe next time, he thought distantly, he'd bring up what tools he used. Mention how long he'd stayed. Not to brag, just so they'd know. Midoriya pushed open the heavy glass door of the repair shop, the faint smell of oil and metal greeting him. The bell chimed, and a man with grease-streaked hands looked up from a cluttered workbench. You must be the kid they sent over. Good, we need all the help we can get today. His voice was gruff but not unkind. Midoriya nodded and smiled shyly. I'm here to help with whatever you need. The man handed him a stack of small parts, some cracked, some worn. Mostly sorting and cleaning today. My assistant twisted his ankle, so you're filling in. Midoriya's fingers brushed a broken circuit piece, and he felt the weight of responsibility. He was used to odd jobs, but this was new, people relying on him this way. High pace and quick work environment. As he worked, the man spoke without looking up. Quirks help, sure, but a lot of this is old tech. We keep prices low to stay afloat. Most of the bigger shops don't bother with repairs anymore. They just sell new stuff. Midoriya tried to follow the conversation while carefully assembling a small device. It's a grind. Customers want things fixed fast, cheap, and perfect. I push my crew hard, but can't always pay them what they deserve. If I slack off, I lose business. That's the way it is. The words felt heavy. Midoriya glanced at the worn hands and tired eyes of the man, thinking about his own efforts to earn money for his mother's future. Later, as he carried a heavy toolbox to the back room, a younger worker stumbled, wincing. You okay? Midoriya asked, steadying the man. Just the usual. Been pulling double shifts to cover bills. Don't want to quit, though. Too many people depending on this place. Midoriya nodded, the tension in the air settling in his chest. The ideal of honest work and fair pay was a fragile thing here, balanced only on exhaustion and sacrifice. As he left the shop at dusk, Midoriya's thoughts churned. Earning money wasn't just about helping his mom anymore. It was about understanding a world where effort and fairness didn't always line up. He wasn't sure what that meant yet. Izuku sat on the floor of his room, cross-legged, the late afternoon sun cutting through the curtains in a warm stripe. In front of him was the small metal box where he kept his earnings. He popped the lid open and dropped in the 500 yen coin he'd just received. It landed with a clink, barely shifting the stack beneath it. He stared at it for a second. Then another second. Seriously? He muttered. There were so many coins in there already, and yet somehow, they all looked like they were worth exactly 1 instant ramen each. Not the fancy kind either. The kind you regret eating before you even finish boiling the water. Izuku counted the money again, slowly, like maybe the numbers would magically rearrange if he squinted hard enough. They didn't. Of course they didn't. He leaned back, arms resting behind him on the floor. I've carried refrigerators for more than this, he said out loud, then paused. Okay, mini fridges. But still. He rubbed the back of his neck. This wasn't the first time he'd been underpaid. Some people were genuinely grateful and gave him a decent amount. Some handed him pocket change and a tired smile like that made it okay. It wasn't that he was angry. He didn't want to be angry. But it was getting harder not to feel something. He eyed the metal box again. It was almost full now, too small for the number of coins he had stuffed inside. He'd need a new one soon. A bigger one. That felt like progress, right? But it also meant he'd spent his whole summer squeezing yen out of other people's to-do lists. He wasn't even sure how much it all added up to. Just that it never felt like enough. A breeze rattled his window. Without thinking much about it, he got up and slipped the box under his bed, grabbed his wallet, and headed out. The convenience store down the street was always weirdly cold. Izuku stepped inside and was immediately hit with the familiar blast of refrigerated air. He wandered the aisles, eyes dragging across the labels. Milk, 150 yen. Bread, 200 yen. Some discounted pastries, still even the cheap stuff added up fast. He pulled out the 500 yen coin from earlier and rolled it between his fingers. Technically, he could buy something. But would it feel good? Would it feel earned? He imagined handing it over, and the cashier giving him a receipt like a certificate of how far his spine had bent lifting someone's couch that morning. He slipped the coin back into his pocket. Maybe another day. As he stepped back out into the sun, he squinted up at the sky and muttered, "All that work and I still can't afford the good melon bread." His stomach grumbled in agreement. Izuku sat on a short stone wall outside the convenience store. The summer heat clung to his clothes like a second skin. He had been planning to go straight home, but his legs didn't feel like moving yet. Midoriya, right? He looked up. It was that older guy from the alley job a couple weeks back, Kenim, maybe 19, with a mop of brown hair and a tired slouch that suggested he'd seen more than his fair share of heat waves. Izuku blinked. Sorry, yeah, I remember you. From the fence thing. Kenim nodded and sat down beside him, cracking open a drink. Heard you helped someone haul junk off a roof last week. Izuku scratched the back of his neck. I was just nearby. They needed help. He hesitated. Paid me a few hundred yen. Kenim let out a short breath. A few hundred? For rooftop labor. Izuku shrugged, a little sheepish. They gave me water too? That made Kenim chuckle. You always take jobs like that? I don't choose them, Izuku said. People just ask. I say yes. Kenim tilted his head, still half amused. How much have you saved by now? Izuku blinked. A lot. He paused, then looked down at the bottle in his hands. Like, a lot. More than I know what to do with. Kenim raised his eyebrows. Good for you. Yeah. I guess. Izuku nudged a loose pebble with the side of his shoe. It's just weird. I work all the time. I have this box, it barely closes now. But the jobs are getting smaller and the money feels lighter. Not in amount. Just value maybe. Kenim gave him a sidelong look. So the money's adding up. But it doesn't feel like it means anything. Izuku nodded, slowly. Right. They sat quietly for a moment while a DLVY scooter passed by, its engine loud and short-lived. Kenim took a sip of his drink. You're polite. That's probably why people keep coming to you. You work like a grown-up but you talk like a kid still figuring it out. Izuku blinked, not sure whether that was a compliment. Thank you. Kenim grinned. It wasn't an insult. Izuku tried to smile. It's just when I started doing this, I wanted to help my mom. I still do. I still will. But now I've got all this money and I'm realizing I don't really understand how people decide what things are worth. Or what I'm worth really. Kenim shrugged. They decide what they can get away with. That's how most people price labor. Especially when the person doing it's too nice to push back. Izuku stayed quiet, mulling that over. You're figuring it out, Kenim said. It's not about what you make. It's about how fast people start expecting you to take less. Izuku didn't respond, but he gripped his hands a little tighter. Kenim stood, stretching lazily. You've got something steady. That's rare. But don't let people drain it just because you make things look easy. Izuku looked up. Like what though? What do I have? Kenim tapped his chest. Work ethic. Reputation. Patience. That kind of stuff gets noticed. Doesn't mean it gets paid for. He turned to leave, waving lazily over his shoulder. Anyway, if someone offers you 500 yen again, at least ask them to throw in lunch. Izuku stayed sitting for a little while longer. Sweat was dripping down his face now. He looked down at his hands, then off toward the sky. He had money. He had a lot of it. So why didn't it feel like enough? Izuku woke up earlier than he meant to. The sky outside was pale but bright. No sun yet, just that off-white glow that made everything feel like it was already halfway through the day. The ceiling fan turned in slow circles, ticking every time it passed a particular point. He lay still for a while, staring up, then turned onto his side, then onto his back again. There wasn't really a reason to be awake this early, but he also couldn't think of a reason to go back to sleep. Eventually, he got up. Breakfast was 1 egg and a slice of bread with nothing on it. He didn't toast it, just chewed slowly while watching a commercial about a new water filtration bottle. He kept checking the time, even though the job wasn't until later. Then he double-checked his bag, even though he hadn't touched it since yesterday. Water bottle, gloves, towel, pencil, backup pencil, his wallet. He counted the cash inside without meaning to. Twice. It hadn't changed. He stuffed it back and zipped the bag shut again. Sat down. Stared at the floor. And then stood up. There were still 2 hours to go. But maybe they'd want help setting up early. The walk to the job was long and hot. There were kids outside already, yelling at each other across the park. A dog barked from somewhere behind a gate. The cicadas were going full blast, so loud it sounded like the trees were shaking. Izuku wiped the back of his neck with the towel he brought, then checked the address again on his phone. Still the same. Still 5 blocks to go. He picked up the pace. Moving helped. Sort of. At least it felt like doing something. The guy who hired him was setting up a booth by himself when Izuku arrived. Middle-aged maybe. T-shirt with a local sports logo, baseball cap, scuffed sneakers. He looked up and gave a short nod. Midoriya? Yes. Hi. Cool. Grab that box and follow me. No small talk. Just pointing. Izuku didn't mind. The booth needed folding tables, chairs, shade, a cooler full of drinks, a metal cash box, a plastic banner that kept falling off the front rail. Izuku held one corner while the man retaped the other. You done this before? Yeah, something like it. The man grunted. Don't drop anything. It took a little under an hour. Nothing difficult, just sweaty and weirdly repetitive. Carry, unpack, set up, tape down, carry more. The metal chair legs left smudges on his palms. The banner ripped once and they had to loop a zip tie through the edge to hold it. Izuku worked in silence. Not because he wanted to seem mysterious or anything, he just didn't know what to say. The guy didn't seem to mind. When they were done, the man handed him an envelope. Then pulled a few coins out of his pocket and added them on top. Extra, he said. For being early. Izuku blinked. Oh, yeah. Thanks. The guy snorted a little and sat down in the chair closest to the shade. You ever thought about starting something? He asked, cracking open a canned tea. You're organized. Quite. There's not a lot of people like that. Izuku smiled, nervous. I guess. Didn't try to bring up that he did have a small thing going on. Just saying. People remember that kind of thing. Izuku bowed, then stepped back. The public library was cold in a way that felt almost aggressive. Izuku didn't mind the quiet. He liked the quiet. But the chill of the air conditioning made his arms go bumpy, and he hadn't brought a jacket because it was July and he didn't think he'd be here this long. He flipped a page. Didn't read it. He flipped another. Still nothing. The book in front of him was about small business startup structures, a real one this time, not a blog post or an inspirational quote thread or a 10 ways to grow your side hustle list. It had diagrams, legal codes, a paragraph explaining municipal tax reporting he'd read 3 times and still didn't fully get. He blinked slowly at the page. He wasn't bored exactly. He just couldn't seem to get in. His eyes felt itchy. His shoulders wouldn't relax. He wanted to do something, anything, but he didn't know what it was. He closed the book, reopened it, then closed it again. His hand hovered over the spine like maybe the words would reach out and grab him if he waited long enough. They didn't. He slid the book back into his bag and stood up too fast. The chair squeaked loudly. An older woman at the corner table looked up and squinted at him like he was something slightly too large for the room. He bowed reflexively, then walked away with his head down. He wandered through the non-fiction aisles without direction. Finance. Ethics. Urban infrastructure. The more complicated the title, the more he slowed down. Not because he understood them, but because it felt like maybe he should. Eventually, he found himself in the back of the building, near a narrow, windowless section labeled Archival Periodicals. Nobody ever came back here. He sat cross-legged between two shelving units and pulled out a stack of old neighborhood newsletters from 10 years ago. The print was faded. The pages crinkled slightly when he touched them. One of them had a crossword puzzle someone had filled in with bright pink pen. They got most of it wrong. He stayed there for almost an hour. On his way out, the security guard didn't even look up. The clock behind the counter read 2:41 p.m. Izuku blinked. He thought it was later. Outside, the heat slapped him in the face like he owed it money. The concrete was too bright. His eyes watered. His mouth felt dry but not thirsty, more like his body forgot how to regulate anything. He wandered a few blocks in a direction that didn't lead anywhere. A truck drove past and blew hot air at his ankles. A dog barked behind a fence. Someone across the street was peeling paint off a garage door with a putty knife. The scraping sound followed him half a block. He passed a takoyaki stand he recognized. The guy behind the counter used to give him free extra sauce when he was in uniform. Today, Izuku kept walking. He didn't want to talk to anyone who remembered him from when he was still interesting. At the train station, he didn't go in. Just sat on the bench across the street and watched people filter in and out of the entrance like grains of rice falling into a jar. A girl in a uniform skirt ran up the steps with her hair flying behind her. An old man with a cane stopped halfway and took a break. A group of kids, maybe middle schoolers, maybe younger, argued over where to get ice cream. Izuku sat there for 15 minutes. He wasn't waiting for a train. He just didn't know where else to go. When he finally got home, the kitchen was empty. The light was off. The fridge hummed in the background. He poured a glass of water, then left it on the table and forgot about it. Back in his room, the fan was still turning. The curtains were drawn halfway. He stood there in the doorway like a guest. Then he dropped his bag, kicked off his shoes, and lay down on the floor. Not because he was tired, because there was nothing else to do. The next job came from a folded scrap of paper someone handed him yesterday. No name, no details, just a location and a time written in thin, cramped handwriting. He didn't normally take those. But he'd helped the guy once before, older, missing 2 fingers on one hand, always wore a bright vest with faded reflective strips. He'd said something like, "You're reliable. Might be more work if you want it." Izuku had nodded and taken the paper. Now here he was, 2 blocks past the train station, standing outside an alley that smelled like melted plastic and too much cologne. He had no other jobs lined up for the day. Maybe that's why he decided to go. He checked the address again. Checked the clock on his phone. 1:58 p.m. Still early. He waited, trying not to fidget. The heat had peaked around noon, but the sun hadn't backed off yet. It hovered heavy over the pavement. His shirt clung to his back like it was afraid to let go. Not much later, a car pulled up. It wasn't a bad car. Black, compact, clean. Not expensive. Just unremarkable. A woman stepped out. She was dressed in business casual summer wear, white blouse, dark slacks, nice sandals. Her hair was tied back neatly. She wore sunglasses and she didn't take them off. "You the helper?" she asked. Izuku nodded. "All right, get in. Job's 10 minutes out." He hesitated just for a second. She noticed. "It's not shady," she added, like that would help. "Just boxes. Local office needs cleanup. You don't even have to talk." Still, she waited until he climbed in. The drive was quiet. The woman didn't play music. She didn't check her phone. She didn't ask his name or where he was from. Just tapped her fingers against the wheel at red lights and sighed softly, like she was late to something. Izuku stared out the window. They passed a closed florist, a curry shop he didn't recognize, a building with cracked bricks and an old, quirk-friendly hiring sign still taped to the glass. He played around with his fingertips, trying not to make himself small, but not knowing what to do with the silence. Eventually, they turned onto a side street with peeling curbs and hydrangeas growing wild over a chain-link fence. She parked beside a gray building that might have been an office once. No sign on the front. Just a buzzer and a dented door with rust around the handle. The woman got out and unlocked it. "In here. You'll see it." Inside, the air was cooler, stale with faint dust and plastic wrap. There were boxes everywhere. some labeled, some not. A desk half dismantled. A wheeled chair upside down near the back wall. A filing cabinet with no drawers. Izuku stepped in quietly and scanned the space. "Just move him into the front hallway," the woman said, waving a hand. "That's it. Stack him neatly. I'll grab someone to pick him up later." He nodded and set his bag down by the door. The work wasn't hard. Just awkward. Some of the boxes were half empty and lopsided. Others were sealed tight with duct tape, heavier than they looked. They smelled like paper and cardboard and something faintly chemical. He stacked them slowly, careful not to crush the corners. The woman wandered off. He could hear her on the phone down the hall, talking in a voice that sounded businesslike but also a little too polite. She laughed once, short and fake. Izuku didn't listen. He kept working. One box at a time. It took maybe 40 minutes to clear the space. When he was done, the hallway looked like it had been rebuilt in cardboard. Towering stacks lined the walls. None taller than shoulder height. He was careful about that. Safety and all. The woman returned when he was nearly finished. "Fast," she said, sounding mildly surprised. "You're better than the guy last time." Izuku gave a small smile and bowed lightly. She pulled out an envelope and handed it to him. "Payment's all in there. Don't open it here." He took it and nodded, even though something about the phrasing poked at him. Not sharply, just enough to leave a mark. As he turned to leave, she called after him. "You go to Aldra, right?" He paused in the doorway. I did," he said. "I graduated last semester." She smiled faintly, sunglasses still on. "Thought so. You helped my cousin's restaurant once. Said you were quick. Good with your hands." Izuku dipped his head again. "Thank you." "Anyway," she said, reaching into her purse and pulling out a can of iced coffee. "Take this. It's hot out." He accepted it with both hands. "Don't work too hard," she added, already turning away. The door closed behind him. He walked for half a block before checking the envelope. The money was clean. Tightly folded. More than he expected. By a lot. Not suspiciously much. Just generous. Uncomfortably generous. He thought about turning around. Saying, "This is too much," or, "I think you meant to give me a smaller amount," or even just, "Are you sure?" But the building was already behind him. And she'd already walked away. And she had said, "Don't open it here." He kept walking. By the time he got home, the can of coffee had gone warm. He drank it anyway. The cash went into the black box, but not before he counted it again. 25,000 yen. For 40 minutes. No transportation cost. No equipment used. Just lifting boxes. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't even particularly strange. But it didn't feel like a favor anymore. It felt like something else. But maybe he was just paranoid. That night, he lay on his futon with the fan buzzing too loud in one ear and his phone screen glowing just enough to hurt. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't. But for the first time in weeks, he started to wonder why people kept paying him more than he asked. Why they kept saying things like, "Don't worry, it's legit." Why their faces changed a little when he didn't talk back. Did Izuku give off the impression he was paranoid? Did he show how uncomfortable it made him? He used to think it was about trust. Now he wondered if it was something else. If maybe, not asking questions made people comfortable. And maybe that wasn't the same as safe. Izuku was lying on his stomach with his arm dangling off the side of the bed when his phone buzzed. He didn't check it right away. He thought about pretending he hadn't heard it. Sometimes if he left it long enough, it'd feel like the message was meant for someone else. But after the second buzz, he rolled over and picked it up. A known number. "Got your name from a guy at Mori-san's job. Said you're reliable. Want to make 15,000 yen quick? 2-hour gig. Discreet. Today or tomorrow. Let me know." Izuku sat up too fast. The room tilted a little. He read the message twice. Then a third time. He didn't recognize the number. But Mori-san was someone he'd worked with last month, one of those midsummer office moves where half the job was just wrapping cables and pretending not to listen to people argue about which whiteboard to keep. The man hadn't seemed shady. Just tired. Efficient. Asked no questions. Izuku didn't remember giving him permission to pass his number along. But he couldn't remember not doing it either. That happened sometimes. Little gaps. He stared at the screen a while longer. 2 hours. 15,000 yen. That was a lot. Too much, really, for something that small. Even the good gigs rarely cracked 5,000 an hour. Not unless you were driving or lifting something too heavy for one person. Or doing something they didn't want to put in writing. The word discreet stuck in his teeth. He set the phone down. Paced a little. Picked it back up. Typed out, "What kind of job?" Then deleted it. Typed again. "Who exactly gave you my number?" Then deleted that too. The message stayed unread. Blue bubble. He tapped the back of the phone against his palm. Twice. It wasn't like he hadn't heard of jobs like that before. Fast cash, short notice, no questions. Usually from friends of friends. Sometimes couriers. Sometimes worse. Not necessarily illegal. But not illegal either. He wasn't stupid. He knew the edge when he was standing next to. But knowing wasn't the same as deciding. He sat down at his desk. Unlocked the black box. Closed it again. Pushed his notebook aside. His knee bounced under the desk and wouldn't stop. He thought about the park down the street, the vending machine near the alley, the paint on his fingertips that still hadn't fully come off from yesterday even though he hadn't been paid for that either. He thought about his mom, asleep when he left that morning. He thought about the way she didn't ask where he went anymore, just let him hide back in his room as if he hadn't left. His phone buzzed again. Same number. No worries. If not interested, just ignore. Opportunity'll pass. Happens. Thumbs up. No pressure. He hated how much that helped. Izuku left the phone face down on the floor and sat beside it, back pressed against the wall. He didn't delete the message. Didn't respond either. Just sat there, listening to the fan tick as it turned. Izuku stood under a flat gray sky, clutching a single 10,000 bill between his fingers like it might bite him. He stared at it as if focusing hard enough could make it disappear. His hand trembled. The trash bin next to him was wide open. Inside, he could see fast food wrappers and receipts shuffling in the breeze. He glanced around. No one seemed to be watching. "This is ridiculous," he muttered to himself. He held the bill out over the opening. His heart pounded. His fingers hesitated for one last moment, then let go. The money floated down, flipping like a leaf. It landed gently on top of a half-eaten burger and a napkin with a cartoon hero printed on it. Somehow, it looked like it belonged there. Izuku took a step back and tried to breathe. It was done. 3 whole seconds passed. Then his body tensed. Nope. No. What am I doing? He said all at once, panicked. He lunged forward and dove back toward the bin, both hands plunging into the trash before his brain could stop him. A woman carrying grocery bags froze on the sidewalk. A small child pointed. Izuku's face turned red. His arms flailed in the bin, searching. "I dropped something important." I'm not, he trailed off, crouched like a criminal, his forehead nearly hitting the metal rim. Something inside smelled sour and wet. His fingers brushed paper. He snatched it. He pulled the bill out like it was some kind of cursed artifact. Ketchup dotted the corner. He stared at it. He wiped it on his sleeve. The woman was still watching. The kid kept pointing. Izuku gave a nervous, high-pitched laugh. It's sentimental. Neither of them responded. The kid whispered something. The mother shook her head. He stuffed the bill into his hoodie and walked away very quickly. His face burned. His stomach twisted. He told himself he'd use the money to buy hand sanitizer. Or burn it. Or maybe both. But he couldn't throw it away. Once was already too much. It was the first time in weeks Izuku didn't have a job lined up. No text. No phone call. No flyers to check. No errands. No deliveries. Nothing. Just the sun rising like always, flooding his bedroom with pale yellow light. He sat up slowly, blinking at the time. 9:34 a.m. That was late for him. Almost embarrassingly late. Most mornings he'd already be halfway across town by now, scrubbing floors or carrying boxes or waiting patiently outside someone's apartment. But today he had nothing. He checked his phone anyway. No new messages. Just battery percentage, 82%. He sat there on the edge of his bed, still in his wrinkled sleep shirt, listening to the buzz of the cicadas outside and the low hum of the neighbor's air conditioner. The apartment felt too quiet without the usual rustle of his bag or the clatter of dishes before rushing out the door. He stood, wondered, opened the fridge, closed it again. His wallet sat where it always did, by the door, beside his shoes. Overstuffed with folded bills, neat and heavy. Money wasn't the problem today. He had the whole day. Technically. So he sat at the kitchen table with a cup of cold water and tried to think of something to do. Go to the mall? Too pointless. Train? He didn't train. Call someone? He scrolled his contacts just to make sure. There was no class group chat. No guys to message. No circle of friends to drop a K to. The numbers in his phone were mostly clients, old teachers, and saved numbers from job leads. He turned his phone screen off. He ended up lying on the floor. Not napping. Not relaxing. Just lying there. Staring at the ceiling, hands on his stomach, letting the fan wash over his face like wind through a window in a car that wasn't going anywhere. Outside, a dog barked. Somewhere, kids were playing. Summer was happening. But not to him. For him, it was just a long, hot day. With nowhere to be. No one expecting him. And no one to miss him. He let the silence stretch a little longer, then closed his eyes and let the day keep slipping past without him. By late afternoon, the walls of the apartment started to feel too close. Izuku slipped on his red hoodie despite the heat. He didn't really have a destination. Just needed air. Somewhere with motion. Somewhere that didn't hum with cicadas and fridge buzz and the weight of stillness. He walked to the local shopping center. Not the big mall, just the nearby one with the drugstore and the bookstore and that bakery with the overpriced melon pan he only bought once. He didn't have a plan to spend anything. He just liked walking near people sometimes. It reminded him of being part of the world, even if no one noticed him. He wandered down an aisle in the convenience store, looking at bottled tea labels he'd already memorized. As he turned toward the freezer section, he heard a familiar voice. Oh no, I told him we're not getting the strawberry kind again. He always eats 2 in one sitting. Izuku blinked. It was her. Mrs. Tanaka. 2 summers ago, he babysat her son for almost a whole month while she worked late shifts. He helped the boy with his kanji homework. Cleaned out the fish tank. She used to say, "We're so lucky to have you, Midoriya," and hand him little snack bags for the walk home. Now she was right in front of him, holding her toddler on one hip and looking over a freezer door. He opened his mouth, hesitated, then said softly, "Excuse me." She glanced at him, smiled politely. "Yes." He waited a second too long. "Oh, sorry. Thought you were someone else." Her smile stayed polite. "No worries," she said and turned back to the ice cream. He stood there for a beat. She didn't double take. Didn't pause. Didn't say his name. Nothing flickered in her face. Nothing clicked. It wasn't even rejection. It was worse than that. It was neutrality. He left the store without buying anything. Outside, the sunlight had turned orange at the edges, long shadows creeping under cars and vending machines. Izuku sat on a bench under a tree that didn't give much shade, twisting a loose string on his sleeve. It wasn't like he expected to be remembered forever. He knew people moved on. He knew he wasn't special. But she used to say his name with such warmth. She told her friends about him. She once gave him an extra bill, "Just because you're so trustworthy." Now he was just another sweaty teenage boy in a hoodie. Izuku pressed the heel of his hand against his eye, as if to push the feeling back in. He didn't know what felt worse. Being invisible, or realizing maybe he always had been. The convenience store near the station had one crooked table out front. The kind no one ever really used unless they had nowhere better to be. Izuku was already sitting there with a bottle of green tea sweating beside him and a notebook open to a page filled with uneven columns. Jobs done. Jobs pending. He wasn't really reading it, just tracing the lines with his eyes, letting them blur. The other chair scraped suddenly. He flinched, looking up fast. Shinso Hitoshi stood there, holding a melon soda like it owed him money. "You using this one?" he asked. "A kind of," Izuku said. "But not like, I mean, you can sit if you want. It's not, reserved or anything." Shinso raised an eyebrow, but sat without saying anything else. The can hissed open. Izuku stared at his notebook for a second too long, then tried to look like he hadn't been startled. "You're from that birthday thing," Shinso said finally. Izuku glanced over. "The one with the clipboard lady? And the balloon arch that kept deflating?" Shinso gave a small nod. Yeah, I remember. You helped fold the backdrop when it started falling over. You stacked the gift bags. They weren't gonna survive if I didn't. I thought you were one of the client's cousins at first." Izuku blinked. "Oh, really? No, I was just working. I mean, I usually do stuff like that. Stuff near it." Shinso didn't reply, just sipped his drink. Izuku added, "You didn't talk much then either. You didn't look like you wanted to be talked to." "I never know if I'm supposed to talk. When I'm working, I mean. Some people think it's weird if I do. Or if I don't. It's hard to tell." That got a very faint quirk of the mouth from Shinso. Not a smile. More like a smirk's shadow. The air was dry and still. A napkin blew by and got stuck under Izuku's shoe. "So," Shinso said, "you hang out here often?" Izuku shook his head. "Not really. Just today. I had nowhere to be for once. It felt strange." "Strange good or strange bad?" Izuku thought about it. "Both. Yes. I've been kind of doing too much." Shinso looked at him sideways. "No way." Izuku laughed under his breath. "It's not on purpose. I just start and then I forget to stop. I get nervous if I sit still too long." "Because of your mom?" Izuku blinked. Then looked down. "No, I mean, kind of. It's not like she's making me or anything, but..." He trailed off. Rubbed the back of his neck. "I just want things to be okay for her. Even if it's later. Even if it's not now." Shinso didn't say anything to that. But he didn't look away either. "You always keep a notebook?" Shinso asked eventually. Izuku nodded. "Yeah. It's mostly work stuff. Money tracking. Sometimes notes about people. Not like names, just how long something takes. What to avoid. Who double books. You write all that down? I forget otherwise. Or I think I remember and I'm wrong." Shinso tapped the side of his can. "Ever write anything else?" "Like what?" "Plans. Ideas. Warnings to your future self." Izuku hesitated. "Not really. That stuff usually just stays in my head. Or I try to forget it on purpose." There was a silence there. Heavy, but not sharp. "I have other notebooks too, from when I was younger. He softly laughed to himself. "I used to make these crazy hero analyses." "The stalker way? Or the way too invested way?" "Way too invested. I have like 12 notebooks full of hero stuff. Wrote about all the things they could do with their quirks, all their skill sets, advantages of costume design, personality, all that stuff." "You're starting to sound more like the stalker way." He snorted. No, I just admired heroes a bunch, how they use their quirks to save people. Quirks are super interesting to me, 'cause Izuku gulped, 'cause I'm quirkless." Shinso didn't flinch. Didn't blink, even. He just looked at Izuku for a long second. "Huh." Izuku's stomach did a small flip. Anyways, I just work a lot. I'm used to it. I figured out early on that if I wanted to be useful, I had to be fast and careful and good with my hands and stuff, so I have to be organized so I keep everything straight." "You don't have to explain it," Shinso interrupted, calm but firm. Izuku's mouth closed around the next half sentence. Shinso took another sip of his soda and said, without judgment, "People treat quirklessness like it's a disease." "Yeah?" Izuku said softly. "Or a punchline." Shinso tilted his head. "I've been on the edge of that too. My quirk's not the kind people trust. It's the kind people want to regulate." Izuku blinked. "You have a quirk?" Shinso nodded. "It doesn't mean people like it." Izuku gave a small laugh. "I think sometimes I prefer being invisible. It's better than being hated." Shinso looked at him, more serious now. Invisible people are easy to ignore. But they're also hard to predict. Izuku didn't know how to respond to that. But he didn't feel embarrassed anymore. Shinso suddenly spoke up. If someone offered you a job, like no details, high pay, said it had to be discreet, would you take it? Izuku stiffened. He didn't look up. Just pressed his thumb to the corner of the page, where he doodled a rough estimate of his summer savings. Did you get one of those? He asked. Last week. Izuku nodded slowly. I got a message. A few days ago. You take it? No. Not really. I didn't reply. I thought about it, but he rubbed the back of his hand across the table, wiping away a crumb that wasn't there. It felt wrong. Even if I didn't know what it was. It just felt off. Emchim. But you didn't delete it either, did you? Izuku didn't answer. Shinso nodded like he understood. You can say it, I don't mind. Izuku mumbled. Say what? My name. You probably know it. Midoriya, right? Izuku nodded. Izuku. Shinso watched him for a second. Hitoshi. The moment stretched. Izuku tried to force a breath through his nose and smiled a little, more out of habit than comfort. I'm not usually good at this kind of thing, he admitted. Talking without, a reason. Shinso tilted his head. You don't need a reason to talk. Yeah, but it helps. You think everything needs a reason? Lately yes. Another pause. I don't mind reasons, Shinso said. I just don't trust them. Izuku gave him a side glance. That sounds like something you'd write on a t-shirt. Would you buy it? I don't buy t-shirts unless they're on sale. Shinso made a soft sound, possibly a laugh, possibly just a snort. He stood a moment later. I should go, he said. This was, sorry. Izuku nodded. Yeah, why? It was. I'll probably see you around. Okay. Shinso turned slightly. Later, Izuku. Bye, Hitoshi. Izuku stayed at the table a little longer. The green tea was warm. His notebook was still open. This time he wrote something down. He didn't write what it meant. Izuku wanted work. Word of mouth had slowed to a crawl. His flyers were probably torn down by wind or time or kids with nothing better to do. Messages came in less and less, then not at all. He didn't need money. Not urgently. He had enough saved. He could afford a break. If he wanted, he could take the afternoon off and no one would starve. But still, he needed to work. There was a dull strum inside him, quiet but steady, like a hum in his bones. It wasn't boredom. It wasn't even ambition. It was a need. Not to run. Not to study. Not to read. But to do. To be useful. To turn time into money. It wasn't about the cash itself. It was about the exchange. Hours for pay. Effort for proof. He needed to see something come out of his hands. Every moment spent idle made his skin itch. He checked his phone. Then again. Nothing. No new texts. No unknown numbers. And slowly, as the silence stretched into late afternoon, he realized something he didn't want to admit. He would probably never feel as satisfied as he did during the days he ran 6 jobs back to back. When he collapsed at night knowing every second had been accounted for. Jobs had been slowing for a while now. He had noticed. He just didn't want to admit how much it hurt. He had already burned through all the free business mock tests he could find online. They didn't help. He could study more. But it wasn't what he wanted. Not really. He wanted movement. He wanted use. He wanted the hum in his chest to quiet down. He crawled under his bed and pulled out the black box. The lock clicked faintly under his fingers. He never rushed opening it, afraid he would damage the mechanism. He sat cross-legged on the floor and opened the lid. The money inside was organized, neatly wrapped in flimsy rubber bands. He moved the stacks gently aside, counting them without meaning to. He knew exactly how much was there. Enough for rent, if he had rent. Enough for a whole other life. Too much to be normal. Too much for a kid. He reached beneath the cash and pulled out a single white business card. No name. No logo. Just a number. He remembered the man who gave it to him. The ex-hero jaded by the realities of hero society. The ex-hero who had a limp and a gruffy look. Learn how the real world works, he said. Izuku stared at the card. What if it was like last time? What if it wasn't? What if they were just generous? What if it was real work this time, actual honest pay? What if they tricked him? But now he knew what to look for. He had learned. He wasn't the same kid. If he took this, it wouldn't be because he was naive. It would be his choice. He wasn't desperate. He was prepared. He took a deep breath, opened his phone, and typed. I got your number from someone. He said there were jobs. I'm interested in what kind of work you had. Izuku stared at the message on his phone. Delivered. The timestamp sat there like a stone. The number had seen the text 20 minutes ago. Still no reply. He locked his phone. Unlocked it again. Nothing. He told himself it didn't mean anything. That people got busy. That maybe they didn't check text often. But the read receipt said otherwise. He sat on his floor for a while, knees drawn up, chin on his arms, screen glowing dimly beside him. He kept glancing at it like it might change. Like it might answer something. It didn't. Eventually he got up and left the room. The silence was getting too loud. Inko was folding laundry at the kitchen table, a soft talk show murmuring in the background. She looked up when he came in. You okay, sweetie? Yeah, he said too fast. I thought I'd go out for a bit. She tilted her head. Where? He didn't quite meet her eyes. Just a walk. Thought I'd clear my head. Her face softened, mother worried but trusting. You've been cooped up all day, huh? He nodded. I'll be back soon. She didn't stop him. Just smiled, gentle. Bring a jacket. It might rain later. He slipped on his hoodie. Yeah. Then he left. He walked aimlessly for almost an hour. Down alleys. Past train tracks. Through a small park, half empty at dusk. Checked his phone again. Still nothing. 2 hours passed. The sun dipped low and the sky went gray at the edges. By the 3rd hour he was sitting alone at a quiet bus stop, back pressed against the glass, trying not to look like he was waiting for something. His phone buzzed. He almost dropped it. A single message. Tomorrow. South exit, Aoto station. 1:30 p.m. Alone. No name. No question. No instructions. Izuku stared at it. Read it once. Then again. Then again. His shoulders felt tight, like he'd been holding something in for too long. He copied the message into a blank note and deleted the original. Just in case. He sat still for a long time after that, watching the quiet street in front of him, as if someone might walk by and change everything. Then he stood. And started walking home. Izuku woke up before his alarm. There was no reason for it. The apartment was quiet. The sky outside still pale. But his body was tense, already bracing for the day. He stared at the ceiling for a long time. He felt like he should feel more. Nervous, maybe. Excited. But mostly he felt focused. Like something had clicked into place. He got up without turning on the light. Moved quietly, carefully. His hands knew where everything was. His hoodie draped over the back of his. The folded bills in the black box. The note card he had scribbled the meeting time onto. He didn't eat breakfast. He wasn't hungry. Inko called out from the kitchen when he came out of his room. Morning, baby. You going somewhere? He nodded without meeting her eyes. Yeah. Thought I'd walk around a bit. Clear my head before doing some practice tests. She was at the stove, stirring something. Her back was to him. All right. Don't be gone too long. Want to have lunch together later? Sure, he said. Then hesitated. Then said it again. Yeah. I'll be back by then. He left before she could ask anything else. The train ride was quiet. He chose a corner seat and sat close to the window. He didn't take his phone out until the car emptied halfway through the ride. 1:30 p.m. Aoto station. South exit. Alone. He was early. Of course he was. He wandered the area once. Then again. He kept to the edges. Aoto's south exit was tucked between a narrow strip of businesses. A pharmacy. A shuttered bookstore. A bubble tea stand with its lights off. Nobody looked like they were waiting. Nobody looked like they were looking for him. He sat on a bench with a half-broken armrest. Watched the station clock tick toward 1. At 1:30 exactly, a man in a dark gray windbreaker approached. Not young. Not old. A face so forgettable it might have been designed that way. He didn't sit. just stood close enough to speak quietly. "You're the one who texted," the man said. Izuku nodded once. The man looked him over. "You're younger than I expected." Izuku's fingers tightened inside the sleeves of his hoodie. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Then tried again. Can I ask," he paused. "What kind of work is it?" The man tilted his head, only a fraction. "I mean," Izuku swallowed. I don't need details. I just want to make sure it's not, He couldn't finish the sentence. He hated how his voice got small at the end. The man didn't answer right away. His expression didn't change. "You wouldn't be here if you weren't curious," the man said. "And you wouldn't have texted if you didn't already know not to ask too much." Izuku looked down at the ground. He hated that the man was right. He hated how true it felt. But if I wanted to say no later," he asked, voice barely above a whisper, "I could, right?" The pause. The man studied him for a beat too long, then handed him an envelope. "No job today," he said. "Just instructions." Izuku took it, hands trembling slightly despite himself. "You'll get a message. Might be tomorrow. Might be next week. If you respond, you're on the list." "And if I don't?" The man gave a non-committal shrug. "Then you're not." That was it. No names. No handshake. No clarity. Izuku stood still for a long time after the man left. His thumb rubbed a corner of the envelope without realizing it. He wanted to feel proud of himself. For showing up. For asking something. But mostly he just felt a little sick. He didn't open the envelope until the station clock hit 2. Inside was a folded slip of paper. No job description. No signature. Just a phone number and one short phrase in block letters. Be on time. Stay unnoticed. Ask nothing. Under that, one line in different handwriting. "You did good, kid." Izuku sat with it for a while. Then, carefully, he folded the note back into the envelope. He stood and made his way home. The message came late at night. Just a time, a general area, and 6 words. "Bring gloves. Backpack. Walk, not train." Izuku stared at it until his screen dimmed. Then dimmed again. He didn't reply. Just memorized it. He left early. The walk was long, and that was probably on purpose. Too far to bump into anyone familiar. Too far to explain casually. He wore a plain hoodie and gray sneakers. Nothing eye-catching. Gloves tucked into his sleeve. By the time he arrived, the sky was still pale and colorless. The houses were close together but silent. No barking dogs. No laundry lines. No music or conversations through windows. He found the alley easily. It looked like it led nowhere. 2 men stood at the far end. Not speaking. Not watching him exactly, but aware. One nodded. "You're the one who texted?" Izuku swallowed. "Yeah. You've done pickups before?" "I've run errands." A slight pause. Then one of the men held out a small folded map. "Paper. Not digital. Go here. Find the gate in the back, behind the house. It won't be locked. Inside, you'll see a stack of boxes. Take the one marked G4. Just that one. Don't open it. Don't knock. Don't talk to anyone. Understand?" Izuku nodded. "Make it back in 30. If you're late, don't come back." He took the map with both hands. They didn't wait for him to ask questions. The address was 15 minutes away. He walked fast but tried not to look like he was rushing. His gloves were on. The air smelled like dust and something chemical. When he reached the house, he didn't go to the front. The map said around back. The gate creaked when he touched it. No lock. Just the sound of damp wood and rusted hinges. He stepped inside. No people. No voices. Just the soft hum of distant traffic. The shed wasn't big. 4 boxes inside. 3 blank. 1 marked G4. He reached for it slowly, almost expecting something to shift inside. But the box was silent. Not empty, but close. He slipped it into his backpack and zipped it up. Then he left. Not hurried. Not slow. Just moving. The alley was empty when he returned. No men. No parked cars. But a black duffel bag sat by the wall. He hesitated. Then placed the box inside, just as he'd been told. He turned to leave. That was it, right? A flutter of paper caught his eye. An envelope, taped low to the wall near the trash bins. He peeled it off carefully. No name. Just the money. Crisp bills. Folded clean. 20,000 yen. No instructions. No praise. No signature. Izuku stood there for a moment, gripping the envelope in gloved hands. He waited for a voice. A door. A sound. Nothing. Just him. And the weight in his pocket. He walked home. Every step echoing. He didn't know what had been in the box. He didn't ask. That was the job. Not asking. And he had done it. Exactly the way they wanted. He took the long way home. Not to avoid being seen. Not really. He just wanted more time. To think. To feel in control of how he got back. His fingers brushed the envelope in his pocket. Still there. Still sealed. Still real. 20,000 yen. He kept walking. This time, no one had tricked him. No one pushed him. No one cornered him or guilt him into helping. It wasn't like the time with the package. It wasn't like the babysitting father. This time he chose. He saw the message, waited, thought it through, and still said yes. He could have ignored it. He could have deleted the number. He could have said no. But he didn't. He put on gloves. He showed up. He walked all that way, took the box, gave it back, accepted the envelope. Start to finish. His decision. That counted for something. It had to. He didn't know what was in the box. He didn't ask. That was the part he still couldn't shake. Because if it had been something bad, if it had mattered, wouldn't they have told him not to look? Or made him sign something? Or tested him first? No one had. They just handed it over like they'd already decided he could be trusted. That was the part that stuck with him. That quiet confidence. Like they already knew he wouldn't ask. He told himself it was just an errand. He didn't lie. He didn't steal. He didn't hurt anyone. He walked. He carried a thing. He came home. But it was the envelope. That envelope. Taped to the wall, no name on it, no word of thanks. Like it was normal. Like it was obvious. He could still feel the weight of the backpack on his shoulders. He could still feel the moment he handed it over not to a person, but to the idea of them. Whoever they were. Would he do it again? That was the question. And it didn't come with a clear answer. He didn't want to be involved in anything bad. But it hadn't been bad. Not exactly. It was fast. It was quiet. It was useful. He'd been useful. And part of him, some strange part, liked that feeling. Not the money. Not even the job. Just the way it all moved. The structure. Like there was a system. And he'd been allowed to step into it. Back in his room, he pulled the envelope from his pocket. Set it on his desk. He didn't open it yet. Just stared. He told himself again. I made that decision. And then quietly. That means I can make the next one too. But already, the unease had taken shape in his chest. Not fear. Not shame. Just that faint twist of something sliding out of his reach. The choice had been his. That's what he kept repeating. Even if he wasn't sure what it meant. Even if part of him already suspected they'd contact him again. And that he'd answer. The next morning, Izuku woke early. He washed the dishes before his mom could get to them, cleaned the entryway, and watered the plants that had no business surviving as long as they had. He told himself this was good. He wasn't waiting for anything. He was being useful. By 10, he'd already studied an hour. By 11, he'd checked his phone 7 times. Nothing. He stared at the cracked tile in the kitchen for a long time. Then he put on his shoes. He walked with no goal at first. Eventually, his feet brought him to the shopping district. Familiar storefronts, loose flyers fluttering against utility poles, bored cats sunning themselves on rooftops. He recognized an older woman halfway through her struggle up the stairs outside a pharmacy. 2 paper bags in each hand. He moved before he could think twice. Can I help you with that? She blinked at him. Her smile was wide and a little surprised. Aren't you sweet? He walked her the next 3 blocks, bags in hand, nodding politely as she talked about how her joints hated this time of year. When they reached her apartment, she offered him a handful of coins. No thank you, he said automatically, backing up with both hands raised. I just wanted to help. She smiled again. Warmer. He left feeling good. But not full. Not really. Later, sitting on the floor of his room, Izuku stared at his textbook without reading it. His pencil hovered over a question he already knew how to answer. He had helped someone. He had done something kind. But it didn't stay with him. The feeling slipped away too fast. He wanted it to matter more than it did. It hadn't felt like that first job. That job had stayed with him. He rubbed at his chest, annoyed. Disappointed in himself. Then his phone buzzed. A known number. His stomach dropped. Then steadied. Tomorrow. Same time. This location. Bring a phone with GPS. He stared at the message. His heart beat too loud for such a short sentence. There was no offer. No details. Just the assumption. They already knew he'd come back. He should say no. He should delete the message. Instead, he sat with it open on his screen for 3 full minutes. He didn't blink. He just breathed, eyes fixed to the words, like something in them might change. Then, very quietly, he turned off the screen and placed the phone face down. He didn't respond. The fan in the kitchen clicked as it turned. The air was already warm, thick with summer heat. Izuku finished lacing his shoes by the door, hands steady, shoulders tight. He had checked his bag twice already. Water bottle, backup charger, phone set to silent. He didn't know what the job would be, but he knew how to be prepared. Being unprepared made you look young. It made people doubt you. Inko's voice came from behind him. You're heading out? He flinched only slightly. Yeah. She leaned in the doorway, arms crossed loosely over her chest. Where to? Just helping someone out, he said, keeping his voice casual. One of the apartment ladies needed help moving some stuff. Inko nodded once. Did they ask you yesterday? Sort of. A few days ago. I forgot until last night. He didn't turn around. He reached for the doorknob. You've been out a lot lately, she said gently. Summer break, he said too quickly. Then added quieter, I don't want to sit around all day. She didn't answer right away. Then, you've always liked staying busy. Even when you were little. He gave a short breath of laughter. Guess I never grew out of it. He glanced back. She was still watching him. Her smile was small. Careful. You're being safe, right? I'm being careful. Not overdoing it? Not getting too close to hero fights. No, a pause. Then, softer, I promise. He huffed lightly. I haven't followed heroes in ages. He couldn't help but smile. She looked like she wanted to say something else. But instead, she just gave a slow nod. All right, she said. Text me when you get there. I will. He opened the door, stepped into the sunlight. The moment it closed behind him, he exhaled. Not relief, not regret, just something in between. The message came at night. No name. Just text. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. Bring a phone with GPS. Izuku read it twice. Then once more, even though it didn't change. He didn't respond. Just stared at the screen a little longer than necessary before locking it. And placing it face down. After speaking with his mom in the morning, he was oddly even more motivated to go to work. At 1:57 p.m., his phone buzzed again. Start walking east. GPS on. Will guide you. Izuku did as instructed. The streets weren't unfamiliar, but the route felt deliberately plain. Narrow sidewalks, short buildings with closed shutters, vending machines with flickering lights. The third door past the alley. It'll be open. 1 flight down. There wasn't anyone waiting for him. No sign on the building. Just a green door with a splintering edge and a chipped handle. It opened with a low creak. The staircase smelled faintly of floor cleaner. Izuku moved carefully. The room at the bottom was just an office. At least it looked like one. Bare desk. Printer. 2 chairs. 1 pile of papers neatly stacked on the left. Another man entered, said nothing for a moment, then finally gestured to the setup. Only touch what's on the left. Feed it through. Sort the copies neatly. Phone stays over there. Izuku nodded. Yeah, okay. No questions were asked. None were answered. The man left without closing the door behind him. The printer whirred steadily. Pages fed in and spit out cleanly. Some documents had charts. Some were full of empty grids. Others looked like shipping schedules, or maybe floor plans, but nothing had names. No watermarks. No logos. Why would anyone need this much copied and sorted? Why not use a service? A machine? Why a kid? Why him? Izuku glanced down at his hands, careful not to touch the wrong stack. It wasn't dangerous. It didn't even seem illegal. It was just too normal in the wrong way. Quiet and exact and blank. Maybe that was the part that unsettled him. An hour passed. Another person came to pick up the papers. Younger. Casual clothes. They offered a small nod, flipped through the stacks, then slid an envelope across the table. Izuku took it and left without a word. He didn't open it until he was almost home. Inside, 18,000 yen. He blinked. That was more than double what he used to earn in 2 full weekends of babysitting. For copying papers? He didn't feel proud. He didn't feel clever. Just a little out of step. By him. They could have used anyone. Someone older. Someone with a business. Someone less likely to be overlooked. He wasn't even quirked. He was barely anyone. The envelope weighed less than it should have. That night, he sat in his room with the light off, spinning his phone slowly in his hand. He didn't text them. Didn't delete the number either. He kept trying to figure out what it meant that they trusted him with something that didn't make sense. And why a part of him already knew he'd say yes again if they asked.